Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be going over the top 3 positions that the Padres need to trade for before the trade deadline this year. So, starting to get to the point, trade deadline's about a month and a half away, about around, I want to say 6 weeks from almost today, I think. So, it's coming up on us. It's creeping up. This season is flying by. We're almost at the halfway point. But Padres aren't a perfect team. I think a lot of the question marks coming into the year have been answered. We're going to talk about some of those spots. But looking right now at potential positions the Padres need to trade for, there are basically not 3 exactly, but 3 bigger spots: reliever, catcher, outfield in general. You can split that up into center field or probably right field. Jurickson Profar has answered the questions in left field. But looking at those positions, Isaac, what do you like? What kind of comes to mind for each of those spots? And then we'll go through and we'll each give our top 3 positions of need.
I think right-handed reliever is kind of my biggest concern. I know you said catcher, but I think we're kind of all on board. Like, our catchers are pretty good. Austin Nola is solid behind the plate, and he's actually been hitting pretty good lately. I think the last 7 or 8 games he's been pretty solid. And Jorge Alfaro has an 869 OPS. Though he's not the best catcher, he brings a lot of value at the plate. He can DH at times. I kind of think we're set at catcher, along with having a really good hitting catcher down in the minors right now, who unfortunately is not very good at defense, but he's a top prospect. I believe he is a top 50 prospect, Luis Campusano. So I personally think we're set at catcher. But when you look at the bullpen, you got Taylor Rogers, lefty closer. Luis Garcia, he's been solid out of the bullpen. I think he has a 2.9 or so ERA. He's a righty. Suarez is also a righty. He's on the IL right now. Chris Matt, righty. Pierce Johnson. I think the thing with Pierce Johnson, yes, he's a really solid reliever, but I kind of think there's some questions surrounding his health, even when he comes back. What is it, an elbow injury or a shoulder injury, something like that? I don't remember.
Elbow form. I was just looking up some injury-related news to him, and it basically was saying that he could be resumed to start throwing again in mid-June, but nothing has come of that. And that update was June 7th, and I'm looking for anything closer, but I haven't found anything yet.
Cool. So yeah, elbow injury, that's pretty scary. Even when he comes back, I still think you need a righty reliever. And then you go Craig Stammen. Don't get me started on Craig Stammen. I mean, you guys know I don't like Craig Stammen. Tim Hill, Morhone, Wilson, and then Adams is out for the year. But that's a lot of lefties, a lot of pretty good lefties. Now, when you look at it, you're going to get guys coming back. Jose Castillo. You already got Adrian Morhone back, Michelle Baez, and then Drew Pomeranz. 3 lefties and 1 righty. And the 1 righty I'm not the biggest fan of, but it is an upgrade over somebody like Steven Wilson, though Steven Wilson did recently have a good outing. I do think he's an upgrade. Now, I don't know what the reliever market is going to be like come deadline time, but the easiest thing to acquire at the deadline, I believe, is a reliever. I don't think it has to be a top-notch reliever. I don't think it has to be a big-name reliever. I just think it has to be a solid righty reliever that you can count on coming out of the bullpen. I keep mentioning the Padres are going to have one of the healthiest bullpens come August, September, the times when it's really going to, in the NL West, it's really going to come down to who is the healthiest, and I mean, who wins the most out of the games against the Padres and the Dodgers, Padres and the Giants, Dodgers and the Giants. Those are going to be the biggest ones, and I think pitching is going to go a long ways in those series. But I think my biggest concern is a righty reliever. And the crazy thing is, though, is that I really don't feel like there is a big concern the way the Padres are playing right now. I know Matt will talk about his biggest concern. I was actually going to bring it up, but I'll let him talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the roster right now, and especially when Fernando and Manny come back, I can't really determine a big need. I think this Padres team is good as is, but if I had to pick something, a righty reliever, because it's affordable and it's a position of need.
I agree with you there. I'd probably go with another corner outfield bat just because, if not a guy that can play both corner and center, I think we need a center fielder more than anything. I just don't know if Grisham is really going to get any better. His large sample size over the past year and a half, you can say it's probably around 200 games at this point. He's a below average MLB hitter. He hasn't really gotten better. He'll hit for power when you need him to, but he doesn't hit for a lot of average. He gets on base at times. His most valuable asset for the team right now was his sack bunts. I mean, he leads the league in sacrifice bunts. He's done amazing at that part, getting people over, the safety squeezes. He was doing great for that. But is that really all you want your center fielder to be? Great defensively, can hit you for some power and sack squeezes, safety squeezes? Not me. I would prefer a guy who can hit a little bit more, even if it comes at risk of a little bit worse defensive uh, capabilities. I like that. I think we're fine in the bullpen. I think we can add an extra lefty. I think adding a righty would be good, but you have Michelle Baez, you have Jose Castillo down in the minors still. You have Pierce Johnson, who may or may not come back. I think that's the biggest question mark there. If Pierce Johnson does come back, I think you're fine. Suarez has been good. I know he's coming off his knee injury, and it's going to depend on how he heals too, but I think we're fine. I don't really think we need to go out and get another guy. Sure, if you want insurance, you can go ahead, but I think our biggest need is an outfield bat. You have Mazar, who can only face righties, and then you have Myers probably coming back and taking Azokar's spot, and he will face the lefties, which it's a really good platoon, but then now your only problem is center field, where 30% of the time or 70% of the time it's a hole in your lineup, and the other 30% of the time is all right. It's just not something I want to deal with. I think center field, and I think I know Isaac mentioned it. We're fine on catchers, man. Alfaro can DH a little bit more. Nola's been great behind the plate. He's starting to hit more. Alfaro just needs more reps, and the only way you do that is putting Voit at first and Alfaro at DH, and I think that's the way the Padres need to roll.
Yeah, so I'll start out with catcher too, because I'll let you guys know it's not in my top 3 of needs. I think the biggest thing to kind of do when you're looking at the catcher position is look around the league and look at different teams' catchers, and don't look at just one of them. Look at both of them, because it's very rare that there's a team that has a catcher playing 90% of the time. You're usually going to have it like a 70-30 split, just because at actually playing catcher too. Like, because Chase brought up, you can DH Alfaro. That's a big plus. But you don't want Alfaro behind the plate 80% of the games. He's probably going to wear out, and he's probably going to end up getting injured. The wear and tear on catchers is a real thing. So Nola Alfaro is probably one of the better, like one of the higher end like 2 catchers in the league for a team, like a unit, right? I've been incredibly shocked with how good Jorge Alfaro has been. I was not expecting that at all. He deserves to be the starter. Okay, then you look at Austin Nola. Dude, that's a fine backup catcher. That's not that big of a deal. Like that's totally fine. Does he hit for power? No, absolutely not. He hits for almost no power at all. But his average is rising. He's been hitting a lot better for contact. He's a great situational hitter. I don't think that gets talked about enough. If he's up and there's a guy on third base and there's one out, he will hit a sac fly almost every single time. A lot of guys in the Padres lineup do not do that. A guy that I'm going to mention here as the team's biggest need, which Chase did bring up, that's one of my issues. Is like, you got to be able to situationally hit. He does that. Catcher, it's a check. You have your prospect in Luis Campusano, who could get traded. We'll see who they end up making a move for, but you also have a guy in the minors there. Maybe that's a spot that you attack in the draft, or you attack in international free agency. I don't exactly know what you want to do there for the future, because I'm not sure how sold they are on Campusano being that guy. But you do at least have a guy like knocking on the door, and you have 2 capable MLB catchers. So I don't think that's a need. I really don't. I get why people say it is, because Wilson Contreras is on the market and he's putting up an unbelievable season. I don't think adding him is necessarily going to help you that much, because he's a liability behind the plate. He's not horrible defensively, but he's not very good. And we've seen how important having catchers that the pitchers are comfortable with, it makes a huge difference. And that's why Luis Campusano is not the Padres starting catcher this year. That's become very clear. So that's not a need for me. If I'm going 3-2-1, I'm going to go left field at 3, right field at 3, right-handed reliever at 2, center field at 1. That's my top 3 needs. I think you look at right field, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if you have a Myers-Mazzara platoon there, I think that's solid. Myers hits lefties really well. And also, they'll just be random players that Myers is insane against. Problem with Myers is he's inconsistent. Is he worth his contract? No. Is he a terrible player? Is he like awful? No, he's not. He's an average player. You can have him in a platoon. He can bounce around. He can DH. He can play first. He can play left field. Like, you can move him around too. He can be a depth piece and also be a platoon piece. Mazzara has been fantastic. However, you do not want Mazzara hitting against left-handed pitching. You will not see that. The Padres are trying to do everything they can to not expose him there. So having those two guys as a platoon is pretty solid. Jose Azocar as a depth outfielder has been good. You have Estrella Ruiz coming in as also a depth outfielder. Not the biggest need. Right-handed reliever, you look at the Padres right now, you just look at their depth chart. Suarez, he's hurt. Luis Garcia's righty. Stammen, I'm not really high on Stammen. Now Nick Martinez coming in, that's a big plus. Nabil Crismat, also a big plus. Lefties, you have Rogers, you have Palm, you have Castillo. And I know we haven't seen Jose Castillo yet, but I do think that he has to get called up soon. It seems like that's their plan. He has been unbelievable in the minors, and he's a guy that has really, really good stuff. He's going to be very solid. Those are three really capable lefties, and you also have Morhone. If Pierce Johnson doesn't come back, I think it's a pretty significant need, because who am I super confident out of that group? Nick Martinez would be in a long reliever role, so it's not even like a true like one inning pitch reliever. Luis Garcia is solid, Robert Suarez solid, Nabil Crismat solid. You can still add one extra arm. I also don't think it's a massive need, but I do think if you go and you have a big upgrade in the bullpen, I think that's a big plus come late in the season. I think September, Isaac brought it up, that's when you're going to be trying to win this division. And then October, playoff time, like, you want to have a really solid bullpen. So potentially even moving a couple relievers and then going and getting upgrades in those areas. And it could, honestly, just reliever in general, I think I put it to. Not even a lefty or a righty, because there's still questions about Palm, right? There's a lot of injury questions. They could get completely resolved, and that's why I don't have this at the top of my list. But it is a big question mark. And come the trade deadline, if Palm's not back, if Pierce Johnson isn't back, then I'm not counting on them coming back for the season or looking the same when they do come back. So that's ultimately why I have that at number 2. And then number 1, Chase, you brought him up a little bit, Trent Grisham at center field. It's not that Trent Grisham is an awful player, but Trent Grisham is not a very good MLB hitter. Through his entire career, his OPS plus is 102. That's a 727 OPS. Hits 231. Right now, he's been a pretty abysmal player offensively this season. If you look at his recent performances over the last 15 games, he's hitting 228 with a 308 on-base percentage and a 404 slugging. So he's barely scraping over 700 OPS. It's kind of been like, oh, he's been hot lately. Is being an okay player when you're hot, like, good enough? I don't think so. I don't think it is. And the Padres are trying to win a World Series. Is Trent Grisham a solid guy to have like as your weak spot in the lineup? Sure. But if you are trying to make that big move to take the jump to win a World Series, the best spot in their lineup that they can upgrade is center field. Yes, he's a great defender. He's going to end up being a solid player in terms of WAR. He's going to be a pretty valuable player. You can trade Trent Grisham, get an upgrade, and Trent Grisham is still a valuable piece in that trade. So I'm not saying you're just like, oh, we don't know what to do with Trent. We're going to keep him. We're going to go and additionally trade for a center fielder. No, I think upgrading at center field with a team that doesn't want to pay someone, whatever the case is, whatever their situation is, if you go and you upgrade center field, I think that can be a huge plus. So ultimately, I don't think Trent Grisham is ever going to be a solid offensive piece, but that's why I'm going to go with him at 1, which is kind of crazy to say because, about a year ago to around the date, we were real excited about the future of Trent Grisham, but he can't hit fastballs, and it's starting to really show. And you see the way pitchers attack him. If you pound the zone against Trent Grisham, you're going to have a lot of success, and that is an issue when you're talking about your starting center fielder in the MLB. So ultimately, I think that's the biggest spot to upgrade. Chase Isaac, what are you guys' top 3s?
Probably right field, center field, right-handed reliever. I'll talk about Trent Grisham. I'm probably the highest on Trent Grisham, but I'm not like very high on Trent Grisham. The thing is, I think the most he'll ever be is an average hitter. I think the best season he'd have is something like an average hitter. Now, does he bring value as an average hitter and maybe a plus defender? Yeah, there's a lot of value to be had there. Also, I still think he has a lot of trade value. Even if he's not putting on this season, I really do think he still has a lot of trade value. I think the league is pretty high on Trent Grisham in general. I know, the Padres seem to be still high on Trent Grisham considering Jose Alzarcar has been fantastic, and he's still not seeing regular reps in center field and stuff like that. Like if you look at Jose Alzacar's last 7 games, hitting 385 with like a 769 slugging percentage and a 385 on base percentage. It's absolutely absurd. But with that being said, Matt, you brought up, give Trent Grisham to a team that doesn't want to pay a lot of money and that, has a good center field piece. I feel like there is a team out there that both of us like that, I don't know if you guys watched the live stream yesterday, but we brought him up, Brian Reynolds. We've talked about it. If you're going to swing for the fences. If you don't get anybody, it's okay. Like you're still set in a really good position. But right-handed reliever is mainly because like, there's too many question marks for me to feel okay, for me to feel safe in that bullpen. It's like, Pierce Johnson's a question mark because of his injury concerns. And then you got Michelle Baez, who like hasn't had much success in the pros, even though it's a very small sample size. It's not, it's not very encouraging. I think his fastball is like, he throws really hard, but it has not been successful for him. I think, yeah, that's the thing with me is there's just too many question marks in the bullpen for me to feel safe in a right-handed reliever such as Garcia, Suarez, somebody like that. The only right-handed reliever I feel really confident in is probably Nabil Crismatt. And I mean, correct me if I'm missing somebody, but Nabil Crismatt's that guy. But if I go back to Trent Grisham, he has value. He has a decent amount of value because he is a really good defender. He has speed. And I guess he's really good at sacrifice bunting. He's really good at bunting, but in terms of somebody that, could hit for power and average, he's not the guy. He is not the guy that can do that right now. He had this nice 2-week stint, but that's the thing with Trent Grisham is we see too many nice 2-week stints and not enough regular consistency from him. He's inconsistent to the max. He's one of the most inconsistent players, at the plate at least. But if we keep him around, I'm fine with it. I do think he does provide value to this team. What is he at? Like a 1 WAR right now? Right, Matt? I think that's what you said yesterday. If you take that over a full season, that's like a 3 WAR, around a 3 WAR. He's approaching that territory. So, if he's able to get his performance up, he will for sure hit a 3 WAR. But if he's going to stay like this, then it's going to be around like a 2.4, 2.5. And, like I said, there's still a decent amount of value, but there are a lot of outfield options that could take over.
For me, like I think you go center field, then right-handed reliever, and then anything else that you need. I don't need a catcher. I think you can either go right field or hell, you could try to swing a trade where you trade Hosmer away and get another first baseman. That would be number 3. I really don't think you need a catcher. That's the route I would go. I think we're in a really solid spot. We're gonna get Tatis back soon. Machado's going to be coming back and he's going to be fine. That shores up the infield basically outside of Hosmer. Right field is Mazzara and Myers, which depending on how Myers comes back and how much his knee bugs him and everything, you really might need to go out and trade for a right fielder, but you really need a center fielder. Like, who won the World Series last year, right? What did they do? They went all out on offense. Jorge Soler, they had Jock Peterson. They went out all for offense, and it won them the World Series. I think that's the route we need to take. We have strong enough starting pitching. We have a strong enough bullpen. The one thing that we really do lack is a hitting center fielder and or a solid right fielder. I think that's all you need.
Yeah, trading Hosmer would be nice, but I don't know. I don't know how much faith I have that that's actually going to go down right now. So I don't know. I think I'm with you guys, but let us know what your guys' top 3 are. If there's anything that we didn't bring up or maybe a trade scenario that you guys like, let us know too, because as we're getting closer and closer to the deadline, that's something that we want to discuss a lot more. Whenever there's going to be any rumors throughout the deadline, we'll be doing videos. If anything gets released, the Padres are rumored to trade for so-and-so, we'll have a video out that day on that guy. So we're looking forward to talking a lot about these trades as the trade deadline comes closer. Also, I think we're initially planning to do a draft video this week. Scheduling didn't work out with Ryan, but Ryan's going to come on and kind of break down a few different guys that are potential Padres draft options in the first couple rounds and then also later on in the draft. I'm expecting that'll be probably out in the next couple weeks, so that'll be another fun one. So if you guys want to get that content, click the subscribe button. But I think it's going to do it for today's video. So thank you all for listening, and we'll be talking Padres baseball throughout the rest of the season.